and welcome to another video. So today we're going to talk about the 3 ways that music impacts your brain. Starting off with number 1, which is how our brain can be influenced by music. So our brain operates at different states, which is linked to a certain frequency or range of frequencies, and within each range you'll get a different state of being. So starting off with our delta, which is our deep sleep state, we're unconscious in this state, and what happens when you're in the state, so the impact that it'll have on you is that your physicality, your body has time to regenerate and to heal itself. Your immune system is being supported, your cells are slightly restoring themselves, so you're having a restorative sleep, and there's very little awareness to the external world. So this is known as the delta state of sleep. And then we have our theta, which is when you're feeling drowsy, you have a low level of alertness. You are in this state, you feel like a light sense of sleep. You're deeply relaxed, or you're in meditation, or maybe even sometimes when you're daydreaming, you can reach this state of relaxation. So what the impact is on you is you enter a state wherein you're creative and imaginative, and you can process emotions as well. So you have emotional processing happening at this state, and you can access your subconscious memories. And it is also a state known for insight and intuition. Then one thing that I wanted to mention is that we have our alpha state, alertness. And so when you're in your alpha state, you're calm, you're relaxed, but you're more present and reflective. You will feel a reduction in stress, you'll have emotional balance, and you can learn easier and have better memory integration. This is also known as your flow and your calm, focused state. So now we also have our beta. Our beta is our problem-solving state. We're feeling alert when we're in this state, and we are better, so it's more for like conversation. So this is a great state for logical thinking, decision making, productivity related tasks, execution, and focus. Your focus is more on the external world. Then we have our gamma state, which is your peak focus state. So this is when you're in a high level of cognition, you are at a high performance, you're having better insights, your learning and your memory is being processed at a higher speed as well, and a higher level, and you have expanded awareness. This is pretty much a little overview of the different states. Your specific brainwaves can induce certain behaviors, and they're influenced also by sensory input. So for example, if you are in a meditative state and there's a really loud crash, it might put you into your beta, because all of a sudden you have to be really alert and you have to respond quickly, and you have to make sure that you are finding solutions to whatever threat may be close. So for example, you would, for example, be taking a break or resting, and you all of a sudden need to protect yourself because there's an imminent threat due to a specific noise that provokes you to go to an alert state. And so what it suggests is that noises and exterior influences can impact your state of your brain and the frequency at which it is. And so what it suggests is that music can influence your brainwaves as well. This is being researched, and it doesn't suggest that it is a direct impact. So it's not that you can directly control necessarily. At least there isn't enough evidence to fully support that, because your brain going between these different frequencies is a natural process. However, there's a lot of research that suggests that music does influence that. So you can influence it, however, it wasn't written as a hard fact, so I also don't feel comfortable stating that as a hard fact. So there is research that suggests that you can actually impact your state by inducing a certain brainwave through music, or through entering, for example, a meditative state, which is often supported or helped by music in the background. So meditation music, for example, listening to classical music, for example, as opposed to hard rock music, might induce a certain reaction in people depending on how familiar you are with that music style, which takes us into the next research, which talks about how music impacts our emotions and how it can influence our emotions. So, there was a study done where they looked at how music can activate certain emotions and reward centers in the brain. And what they did is they took a subject and they had her listen to music, and they had her write down what she was feeling, and they allowed her to choose whatever she wanted to listen to. And what they did is they measured her brain activity with an EEG. And they previously selected 20 songs, they had her listen to all of it, and then they recorded that. And then in the final stage, what they did is that they used a software where they analyzed the information that they'd gathered to correspond that with the emotions, and also compared it to what she had written down. And they were able to label three emotional states. One was stress, the other one was relaxation, the other one was joy, and the other one was sadness. And what they had found out was that there were certain parts in the songs that were related to electric guitars, and what it did for her is that it induced a stress response for her personally. Then there were other parts of the songs that made her feel relaxed, joyful, and sad, for example. And obviously, the way that we respond to music is very personal, because some of us might listen to an electrical guitar and experience it as stressful if that's not the type of music or instrument that you're used to listening to. But for other people that have more exposure to this, it can be a different response. Now, this is all me suggesting that. It's not based on research, but there have been studies where people looked at how people respond to certain songs differently, and there were some studies that did suggest that our exposure to specific types of music can alter our response. So this study pretty much suggested that the music was inducing or evoking certain emotions within her, and so we can experience this in our daily lives when we listen to a song and it brings up a feeling, and that sometimes can be due to the fact that it's linked to a memory, but it can also just be due to the way that a certain instrument makes us feel or the lyrics makes us feel, which goes to show how music can impact our emotions, or how music can help us to process certain emotions by surfacing specific memories or having us reflect on a specific state or time, based on how the music is allowing us to do that. Last but not least, there's also a study that looked at music, multiple studies that look at music and how it can enhance our memory. Now, this is something that is quite a complicated research to do in the first place. I do not speak from experience here, but there are a lot of conflicting researches that have been done on that debate whether music actually enhances memory or blocks us from improving our memory during study. There was a study that looked at how music impacted our ability to memorize, or people's ability to memorize, and they had found quite different results for whether it was effective or not. But one example was that they had people memorize a set of poems and also random syllables, and they had a test group wherein they had music in the background, and then there was another group, where a control group, where there was no music in the background. What they actually found was that the control group, so the people that didn't have music in the background, were able to memorize more random syllables and more poems as well. So that suggests that music actually can distract you from memorizing a specific set of words, or poems, for example, verses and such. So when you're studying to memorize, perhaps it's better to not have any music in the background. However, there was a different study done where they had people participate in a game where they had to choose from decks that would either have them gain money or lose money. And what they did here is that they had music playing in the background as well. And there were songs that were inducing like a positive feeling. And what they found is that people that had a good feeling due to the music playing may had improved decision making. So it impacted their working memory, which led to better decision making in complex problems. So what it suggests is that when it comes to direct memorizing random syllables or specific phrases and sentences, doing this without music was better. And when it came to decision making, that music can impact how you feel. And when you feel good listening to music, you can end up making better decisions in complex situations. Now, this is one study, so I'm not suggesting you go make all of your difficult life choices while listening to music and feeling good. This is not advice. I'm just illustrating the fact that listening to music, or when you feel good, that it can be influenced by music and that it can lead to better decision making as suggested in this study, and that music in this case wasn't extremely helpful for memorizing, so silence was actually better, but it was helpful when it came to our working memory decision making. And another study also looked at how music was inducing and enhancing better performance. So for example, in sports, this was quite clear that when you listen to a specific type of music that gets you in a good state, you can actually enhance your performance in sports. Hence, listening to music at the gym can be beneficial. However, I think another video or research would have to look into at what point that distracts you from it, because I can speak from experience that sometimes when I'm at the gym and I'm too in the music, I'm not really as focused anymore on my muscles and, like, for example, how far I'm pushing myself. Whereas if I'm silent, I become aware of when I could be giving more to that exercise due to the fact that I'm 100% focused. So that is something that I will leave open. There's no necessarily conclusion in that. The only thing that the study suggested was that music can enhance high performance in sports. So, to conclude, our music can induce our brain waves, so helping us to nudge us towards specific states of being. And music can also help us to enhance specific emotions, relaxation, joy, for example, but it can also create stress and sadness depending on the types of songs that you listen to it and your response to it. Then, last but not least, memory can also be influenced, your brain cognition, by music, depending on how you use it. So not necessarily suggesting that listening to music makes your memory better, but it can improve your decision making when it puts you in a state of feeling good, and not when it is distracting you because it's taking your mind elsewhere. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that you learned something today. I definitely did. I found this really interesting to research, and I'm going to be making a video about how music can impact you when it comes to helping you move away from states of fear, as I found an article and a research that talked about how fear impacts your creativity. And I think that this is a very interesting topic, and I'll be talking about how you can use music and specific techniques to move yourself out of that fear state and into a more creative state that will allow you to have more mental capacity to see solutions and to put yourself in a creative problem solving state due to the fact that you're moving away from the fear state. So without further ado, I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.